We live at a time when a lot of vintage things are becoming popular again. And that includes some of the great garden flowers that our grandparents and great-grandparents enjoyed. So that's why I want to talk to you today about chrysanthemums. Now we've gotten used to those perfectly rounded, what's called a cushion mum, where every one of them looks like a big button or pillow. But there are mums that go back before these became really the fad that are true garden plants. And they look really good this time of year in the fall, and they bring a lot of color with very little care. Now, I've kind of gone wild over these, as I'm prone to do, like get one, need two, three, four, and then suddenly I have a whole collection. But I wanted to take this moment just to show you some of these vintage varieties of chrysanthemums we're growing, the good old garden varieties that come back year after year in your garden. One of my favorites here is this one. It's called Centerpiece. It's just coming into flower. It's a lavender colored one. And look at this little charmer here. It's peachy. This is called Rose Grenadine. And then I love this little purple one over here. It's tiny with its little buttons. It's called Small Wonder. Beautiful lavender flowers for blooming in October and November. Fantastic. And if you like something that's a little more showy, something you can cut and bring inside, we'll take a look at this gorgeous thing. It's going to grow about to 30 inches tall. It's called Homecoming, and you can cut these and use them in arrangements quite beautifully. And the same with this one, which is called Fancy Free. I love the soft lavender or dusty rose shades into peach and slight cream colors. So, and then of course you've got your yellows. I can't forget that. This is one called Matchstick. And you can see the tiny little petals on these actually look like a matchstick. The petal looks like a spoon, but the ends of it is slightly orange, giving it that matchstick sort of look. I planted a few of these matchsticks just over here last year, just to experiment with some of these vintage chrysanthemums, and they've really done quite beautifully. And take a look at this little charmer here called Autumn Sunset. How beautifully it blends in with the last blooms of the lantana and the coleus behind me. You know, this time of year, the garden isn't perfect, and I actually like that because you can kind of kick back and relax. And then when this color sweeps in, it just adds that little special touch of magic to the garden. And like I said, these are all perennial. So add some mums to your garden. You'll be glad you did. If you know me, you know I love beautiful, showy things in the garden that are easy to grow. And if you know what I like, you know I love this Polish Spirit Amaranth. This is a great plant for adding drama to the garden. Now, you know, drama in other aspects of life isn't so good, but a little drama in the garden, I think, is just what we need. And this plant can deliver in spades. What I love about it is its deep, dark burgundy color. It plays well with so many other flowers, particularly in this part of the garden that's focused on pinks and lavender and purple. All of those colors play well with this. Not only the foliage, as you can see here, even in late fall, it is striking because of its really dark, almost claret color, as well as these showy plumes. Beyond its color, one of the other things I want to point out is its just stature. This is a very statuesque plant, so that's where the drama, I think, comes in. Of course, these big plumes are very dramatic, but just the fact that these plants can grow up to 5 and 6 feet tall add a lot to the garden. So give this some consideration, because this is a plant that'll not only bring a lot of flower power to your garden, but a lot of plant power, just because of the various aspects of this plant and what it can bring to a composition. Now, this is a relatively fresh bloom, so if I'm using this for flower arrangements, then this is what I like to cut. I can strip some of the leaves off and trim these down to any size I want to use in an arrangement, and they actually last pretty long. But if you want to save some seed, what I like to do is, you know, I like to save everything I can. Once these begin to fade, you can collect those and save the seed for next year. So come on over here and let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, if you're into seed saving like I am, What you want to do is you want to look at the plant at this stage, and you can see that it's already beginning to brown. That means that the seed has matured. Just look at what happens here by me just taking my hands. Look at all of that seed that comes out. So what I do is I gently cut these dried heads off, lay them on newspaper, so save some for next year. And what we find is we get a lot of happy volunteers the next spring. So it's a great plant to add to your garden. Who doesn't love perennials? You know, those plants that come back year after year in your garden. Well, I love them. But sometimes it's time to move them around, or maybe you want to add some. A lot of people don't think about the fall as being a great time to do this, but it actually is. Late summer and early fall is ideal for planting and transplanting most perennials. So what I'm doing today is I'm actually going to move some daylilies. And the first thing I'm doing is I'm cutting away the old scapes. When the scapes begin to look like this, it's typically a good time to move the daylilies. You see, there's still enough time left in the season for them to actually begin to root in. While the atmospheric temperature might be cooler, the soil temperature remains warm. Now there's a problem here that I want to solve. In this case, I'm not planting new perennials. These daylilies have been so abundant, I'm actually going to move some of them. And you can see back here, some of these are a little smaller because they've been competing with this evergreen hedge. So I'm going to lift this particular plant out and move it forward. And you can see even this last year, the scape size was very short. So it was about 2 feet shorter than these. And this is the desired height of this particular daylily, which is called Autumn Minaret. So as you can see, it didn't take long with my handy cut-all knife to take out all of these scapes. And by the way, a scape is a long stem on a daylily from which the buds and flowers bloom. All right, now with that done, I'm ready to lift some of these daylilies, take the clumps and move them forward here where they get more sun, and by next year they'll be explosive with bloom. So as you can see, this plant is much smaller than the others. It's because it didn't get as much sunlight. So I'm just pulling my round pointed shovel about 5 to 6 inches away from the clump. And I'm just digging a circle around this clump of daylilies. There we go. Now that we've moved the clump of daylilies out of the shadows of that big evergreen, I can see that I actually have about, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fans of daylilies here. So rather than planting this entire clump, of which I could, I can divide it where I'll have 3 fans and 3 fans, so that'll give me 2 places to position another clump of daylilies. So by using my handy knife, I'm just going to go through here and split this clump like that. And so what I have here is some green foliage, which is important. This time of year, if it's getting a little floppy, you can just take the knife and cut a little bit of that back. So that tidies it up just a little bit. But you can see I've got plenty of fleshy roots. So this is an ideal clump to replant in the garden. Likewise with this one, you can see I've got plenty of roots. Cut back some of these, some of the foliage. So you want to make sure you've got plenty of roots with your clump and some green foliage, and now you're off to the races. It's just a matter of working the soil up here and planting these clumps, and as I said before, next year they'll pop out of the ground and be as big as their brothers and sisters. So in this case, we started with a problem. These were being shaded out. Now we're moving them into a new place. We'll have a lot more blooms. So we just made lemonade out of lemons. Give it a try. If you enjoy the autumn tradition of decorating with pumpkins, you'll enjoy this creative way to get maximum use out of harvest time's favorite gourd, the pumpkin. Why not use them as vessels for veggies, herbs, and flowers? Today we're making a fun recyclable container for some bright colored flowers, perfect for composting after the pumpkin's lost its luster. Like any project involving pumpkins, this one starts with carving a nice sized hole in the top and cleaning out the guts. Now you'll want to make the opening wide enough so you have plenty of room to get your plants in. Use whatever kind of pumpkin suits your fancy, and believe me, there's a myriad of them to choose from. But I've found that the fatter, flat bottom ones work best for stability. Now once you've finished cleaning out the pumpkin, now the fun begins. On the face, you can paint something or you can carve something. Use your imagination. Then it's time to actually apply some soil. What you want to do is fill it about halfway. You want to leave plenty of room for your plants. That's pretty good. You can see we've got it in there. And then it's just a matter of sliding a plant into the pumpkin, settling it in nicely like this. Now you'll want to make sure you water this just as you would an ordinary container, but this is a very simple version. You can use your imagination and come up with something with, say, ornamental grasses. Now once your lovely little planter starts to look a little worse for wear, you can plant it directly in the ground. As the pumpkin begins to break down, it will provide your young plants with extra nutrients that they'll be sure to enjoy. I think it's important to note, if you choose a paint for your pumpkin as part of your decor, you shouldn't plant it into the ground lest you leach harmful chemicals into your soil. Once you get started, you'll have so much fun you'll get carried away like I did. I did this grouping of 3. The main thing is just get creative, have some fun, and in the process you'll be improving your soil and feeding your plants. Hey, do you love pecans? Well, or maybe pecans, it depends on where you're from, but it doesn't matter. Pecan, they're delicious, they're nutritious, and they're a Native American tree. I'm at Englewood Farm, all organic. They raise these pecans organically, and this year we have a bumper set. If you want to grow a pecan in your garden, the best thing to do is to think about location. They like a full sun area. You need to be sort of in the upper south, maybe as far north as Missouri to grow pecans. You want to choose a variety that's, well, stood the test of time. There's a good one called Elliott you might consider. You'll have to start with a small tree. Your first nuts are not going to show up until about the 7th or 8th year. A tree like this, well, it's 25 years old, so it's a long-term commitment. And this tree will produce this year probably about 100 to 150 pounds of pecans. Pretty amazing, huh? The other thing you need to keep in mind is you want to plant two varieties. Even though the pecan produces both male and female parts to produce the nut, you want to have another type of pecan for cross-pollination. All right, so get an Elliott and then find a friend for the Elliott variety if you want to grow a pecan in your garden. But whether you grow them or not, add them to your next meal. They're so delicious and so good for you. Oh, look at you guys, man. Just look at these gorgeous flowers. Guess what they are? Well, if you're thinking marigold, you're right on track. But these aren't the typical kinds of marigolds we see. Usually they're the little dwarf types that make great little border plants and go beautifully in containers. These are the big ones that you can cut. This one's called garland orange. And just look at the size of these blooms and the long stems on which you can cut them. Isn't that just glorious? The blooms are so multi-petaled, they look like layers of ruffles. I like to just take a big bouquet of these, just nothing but this type of marigold, and put them in a vase. There's nothing more beautiful and stunning. Marigolds, even these, are one of the easiest annual flowers you can grow. They love full sun. That's very important. Well-drained soils. And what I've found is that if you'll plant them late, you'll get a late bloom. So if you're looking for something that's going to add this kind of color in your garden in September and October, and even into November, plant them late. These were planted actually in August. They germinate very quickly and will bloom within 65 or 70 days. And they will shower you with these gorgeous flowers. And I don't know about you, but I really like the aroma of marigold as well. So if you're looking for a late addition to your garden for a splash of color, check out some of these gorgeous big marigolds. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure to ring the bell for notifications.